Hello everyone, this is part 3 of What If Naruto Traveled Back in Time and Changed, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Konoha 1 p.m. the next day. The fourth Kazekage, was in a foul mood for his whole trip to Konoha. He had sent one of the ninjas his father trusted most to Konoha to simply sign a 3-year peace treaty. A week later, a messenger arrives and informs him that the man caused an international incident by attempting to kidnap the Hyuga heiress. I wasn't ignorant, he knew of his father's previous orders, he just never assumed somebody would be stupid enough to attempt it without his authorization. Now, he was forced into a compromising position in enemy territory. He was welcomed at the gates along with his escort of 2 advisors and a squad of bold by the Hokage and Konoha elders. I took in the aged form of Hiruzen Sarutobi and couldn't suppress a twinge of respect that entered his mind. The man was old and far past his prime, but he was strong enough for I to feel his latent power and recognize the old monkey as a threat. He locked eyes with Hiruzen as he approached and confirmed the feeling he was getting. His detail came to a halt in front of the Hokage and they exchanged pleasantries before he opted to get business over with rather than taking a rest. 15 minutes later, I was in the Hokage's office with Darui, Homura and Koharu and the atmosphere was tense. Hiruzen cut straight to the point and shared copies of all the evidence with I and the Kazekage was growling as he watched the video of his former shinobi. Finally, it was time for negotiations and a chance to end this foolishness. Lord Kazekage, what do you have to say after reviewing the compiled evidence? Hiruzen asked in a neutral voice. I scoffed, that my former shinobi is a complete and total idiot. There is obviously nothing that I could say in his defense, so why don't we cut to the point, and you tell me what you want? Hiruzen let a light smile play upon his face. Well, that is simple. First, I wish for you to issue an apology to the Hyuga clan, the main offended party. While I recognize that the fault does not lie completely at your feet, it is a necessity for us to move forward. Next, I wish to renegotiate some of the terms of the treaty, and I have a proposition for you. We know that you didn't sanction the action and we still wish to move forward toward peace. If I couldn't tell that the village had completely recovered from the Kyuubi attack, he would have taken this as weakness. However, something told him that wasn't the case, and he was going to trust his guts. I crossed his massive arms in front of his chest and grunted. Very well, Hokage, I will swallow my pride and apologize to the Hyuga. As far as treaty changes, what did you have in mind? The Hokage reached into his desk and withdrew the modified treaty. He handed it to the Kazekage for his review before he summarized some of the changes. I am pleased to hear that the Hyuga will get some closure. As for the changes, there was a particular clause in the treaty that said each village would hand over a shinobi responsible for the death of the other's shinobi. This clause was removed since it would lead to more tension than it would resolve. You may review the modifications we suggest and let us know your feelings on it. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. Death is part of the shinobi life. What else? I knew that wouldn't be the main change. We will change the treaty to a 10-year non-aggression pact instead of 3. 3 years is an insignificant amount of time, and a long treaty would allow for us to do more together. Hiruzen responded in a manner that let I know this was the main change he wanted. Very well, I agree to this, but I will have to run it by my council. Anything else? This next part isn't so much a treaty condition as a suggestion that I found worthwhile. What would you say to an exchanged program where we exchange 2 shinobi per semester for the Ninja Academy? Hiruzen was cautious in his approach. I was startled by the suggestion. It was an intriguing proposal, but it carried far too many risks. For what reason? I replied in a hard tone. To promote companionship and camaraderie. I plan on making this offer to Suna as well, and I think that it would do everyone good to see foreign shinobi learning peacefully in a foreign village. Peace cannot be forged if we do not understand each other. I adopted a placid look on his face. No. Homura stood and respectfully addressed I. Might we inquire as to the reason you declined so quickly? Darui made a motion and I nodded to him. Counselor, while it is bothersome to say, in order for something like this to happen, there has to be trust. There is very little trust or positive history in between our two villages at this time. What my advisor said, we have no history. This treaty is a starting point, maybe we could reconsider the offer in 5 years after there is a modi of trust built up. Village security and secrets also are a major concern. I backed up his advisor. Hiruzen nodded, very well, you make a sound point. I agree to review this in 5 years with you. I too wish to use the treaty as a starting point. We are the two strongest villages at this time, and we could lead the shinobi world into a better era if we manage to make this work. You are an idealist, Hiruzen. I don't dislike that, but I would caution you against it. Hiruzen chuckled. Yes, I am an idealist at heart, Don't let that fool you though, I have been in all 3 shinobi wars and this idealist of an old monkey is still kicking. That will be all for now, if you have nothing else. I raised a hand before speaking. I do wish to know who thwarted the attempt. It seems odd to me how everything seemed to fall so perfectly in place for you. Very well. The truth is we do not know. A note was left at the scene of the attempted crime, and it was signed by the Neighborhood Watch. I believe there is a new player that is going to be making moves on the elemental nations. I had an eyebrow. The Neighborhood Watch. Is that some kind of joke? Hiruzen chuckled again and took a puff of his pipe. No, Lord Rakage, it is not. A hanged clone crashed one of our council meetings and confirmed it. They seem to have quite an information network and some rather unique abilities. The intruder claimed that the organization would continue to thwart attempts that would plunge the shinobi world into chaos. I laughed disbelievingly. You are telling me, to my face, that you had no part in this? Koharu scowled before speaking up. Yes, it is most vexing. We know nothing about the organization despite committing our best investigators. We have only been searching since the incident, but we have nothing. I looked amused. Very well, I look forward for my chance to interact with this little vigilante group. I believe that covers the necessary topics. Now where will we be staying? Hiruzen rose from his seat as he spoke. We have prepared multiple rooms at the Golden Leaf for you and your escorts. I will have an Anbu escort you there now. Back in Kazekage, Naruto had woken up in the hotel that morning, but there was something odd. His clothes smelled of tobacco and booze and he had a bundle of nearly $5,000 in his pocket. He felt tired, but he attributed it to sleeping in an unfamiliar place. He looked over at Kakashi that had just gotten out of the shower and was preparing coffee. Naruto cursed his luck at still being unable to see Kakashi's face. Hey, big brother, why do you cover your face? Naruto decided to take the childish approach. Kakashi looked up from the brewing coffee pot and I smiled at Naruto. Well, that is a long story, little brother. Let's just say that something bad happened a long time ago and I have worn this mask ever since. Could you take your mask off? I want to see my brother's face. It's weird talking to you when it's just us and you are wearing a mask. I mean, I understand it when you are on active duty, but why when it is just us? Kakashi seemed to think for a minute on that before he replied. Well, Naruto, have you shared everything about yourself with me? Sometimes, people just need to hold on to something that is completely their own, and for me, that is my face. Ah, fine. Did you notice anything strange last night? I smell like smoke and booze, and I woke up with $5,000 in my pocket. Naruto said, truly perplexed. Kakashi's visible eyebrow raised. Truthfully, he had passed out on a comfy bed after such a long trip. I don't know, Naruto. I am a really light sleeper, and nothing woke me up last night. Naruto shook his head. He tried asking Kurama, but the kitsune was still asleep. That's really odd. You say you want me to share things with you. Well, lately, at night, I have been feeling off. I wake up and I don't feel fully rested and something just feels off. Kakashi's eyebrow rose once more. That is odd, I will keep an eye out, buddy. All I can say is that I haven't seen anything thus far. The two left the restaurant and resumed their search throughout Kazekage. Naruto tried using the cute kid approach and asked anybody who would listen if they had seen his grandma while showing the picture of Suna. The hotel receptionist was the first person to say that she hadn't seen Suna. She did confirm that Suna frequently stays at that hotel, but there were no reservations under her name. Then Naruto thought of something and asked if there was a reservation under Kaido, Shizune's last name. The receptionist checked and confirmed that there was a reservation, but they hadn't checked in yet. Filled with the knowledge that Tsunade would be there soon, Naruto left a shadow clone in the lobby while he went looking around the city with Kakashi. The whole time, Kakashi was observing him and noticed that the child was impossibly mature and that the childish outbursts didn't really seem natural. Naruto noticed Kakashi's gaze and felt his emotions, but damn it all, it is really hard for a 19-year-old to act like a child. The search persisted until lunchtime when Naruto noticed a dive bar diner on the side of the road. He flashed back to the time he entered this bar restaurant and figured he might as well give it another shot. He tugged on Kakashi's sleeve and told him he was hungry while pointing to the diner. Kakashi tried to convince him that they could go to a real restaurant, but he eventually relented in the face of Naruto's persistence. The duo entered the lowbrow establishment and sat down at a table. Sadly, Naruto didn't see Tsunade or Shizune anywhere and he sat down with a resigned expression on his face. "What's wrong, bud?" Kakashi asked after he ruffled his hair. A childish pout was fixed on Naruto's face when he answered, "I was really hoping she would be in here. I had a feeling, ya know." Kakashi shrugged as the two looked at the limited menu. Naruto ordered a glass of milk, figuring it would be odd for a kid to sip tea, and some chicken tenders and fries. He chose the place, so he would force himself to eat the bar food. Right as the food came to the table, Naruto noticed a busty blonde and a disheveled brunette enter the diner. Kakashi noticed the massive smile on Naruto's face and turned around to see the pair of kunoichi. He couldn't believe this kid's luck and intuition. Add it to the list of things he couldn't understand about his little brother. "Okay, Kakashi, I need you to let me handle this. Mom wrote about her a lot and I need to be careful, so just sit here, please. I will be back in 10 to 15 minutes. Naruto said in a deadly serious tone. "I don't know if that is a good idea, bud. Just trust me, Kakani." Naruto implored with the childish version of the puppy dog eyes. It was super effective and Kakashi was forced to avert his eyes from the spectacle of overwhelming cuteness. Kakashi watched as Naruto transformed into a 16-year-old redhead that he had seen around Konoha, and his earlier story about selling ceiling tags made a lot more sense. The girl reached out and squeezed Kakashi's hand in a comforting way before taking off, which caught Kakashi very off guard. The henge jutsu was not supposed to be physical and the kid just grabbed his hand without breaking the illusion. Holy shit, this had massive implications and the Hokage would need to be made aware of it. Naruto, in his Rias form, walked away from the table and walked up to Tsunade and Shizune. The two beautiful women looked up at the redhead with curiosity on their faces. The redhead smiled disarmingly at them before she began speaking. "Lady Tsunade, my name is Rias Uzumaki, but for the time being do not announce my last name." Rias held up her hand to halt the questions that were about to break out from the pair. "I really need to talk to you about your lost family member, but I do not want to do it in public. Could we find someplace private to speak and I will buy your lunch and sake for your time?" Tsunade looked skeptically up at the girl. Her debts were fairly new, so it wasn't likely that a debt collector was on her trail yet. She examined the girl thoroughly and couldn't find anything overly suspicious and she would be able to handle her regardless. Plus, she mentioned a lost family member, and nobody knew that secret except her, Jiraiya, Sarutobi and Orochimaru. "Are you really an Uzumaki?" she asked tentatively. Rias smiled as she locked eyes with the slug Sanin. "Yes, I am. Let's go, Shizune. I want to hear her out," Tsunade ordered as she began to stand up. She didn't notice that Rias held up a hand to let Kakashi know to remain seated. The trio walked out and followed Rias to her hotel, which drew a raised eyebrow when Tsunade noticed it was the same hotel they had reservations for. Pushing her doubts to the back of her mind, Tsunade followed the redhead all the way to her hotel room. Once in the bedroom, Rias offered them seat as she remained standing. "First, I need to tell you that this is not my true form, and I will ask you not to attack me right away." Rias maintained a sincere smile and eye contact as she asked this. "You have 10 seconds before I knock your block off, go." Tsunade said harshly, but she wasn't ready for the transformation to revert in a puff of smoke. Tsunade and Shizune remained in a stunned silence as they looked down on a tiny blonde kid that couldn't be older than 5 or 6. The boy looked familiar to Tsunade, except she found the 3 whisker marks on each cheek quite peculiar. Links began forming in her mind and it began shutting down as the little boy spoke. "Grandma, I know this is going to be hard to hear and even harder to believe. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, but if my father knew his parents, then it should be Naruto Uzumaki Senju. Tsunade fell to her knees in a state of complete stunned disbelief. Shizune was shocked too, but the young lady knew that she had to be strong for her master. Naruto, this is very big news. It would be easier to handle if you had any sort of proof. The two ladies were stunned as the small boy smiled at them and placed his hand on the wooden coffee table. From the wood, 2 roses began growing before they fully bloomed and stopped growing. The whole time, the small blonde boy maintained eye contact with them, and Tsunade noticed that tears were starting to form in his eyes. Seeing that a small child was trying to be strong for her broke Tsunade out of her stunned state long enough for her to pull the boy into a hug. How is it possible? Tsunade asked through her tears. Naruto regretted needing to come up with a lie, but it was necessary to maintain Kami's conditions for returning. I don't know it all, but I have an idea. Tsunade extended her arms and looked at the watering eyes of the child. She was shocked and horrified to see all of the pain and loss that the child's eyes carried. Shizune's hands were over her mouth, also having noticed the pain dwelling behind the deep azure blue eyes. It is okay. Just tell me what you know, and we will go from there. Tsunade whispered to the small child. Okay, please don't interrupt, otherwise this will take too long. At Tsunade and Shizune's nod, he continued. I was thrown out of the orphanage on my 4th birthday. I was surrounded by a mob, and I was beaten badly when I was pulled into my head, or seal, or whatever. There I met my dad, Minato, who talked to me for nearly 2 hours before he did a jutsu on me with his remaining chakra. He also told me how to get into his house, where I have been hiding from the Hokkaigen village for the last year. Naruto was forced to pause here as a tremendous amount of ki flooded the room, and 2 seconds later Kakashi entered through the door in a battle-ready stance. The 2 women didn't take well to the sudden entry and jumped up into defensive stance of their own. Tsunade had jumped in front of Naruto and had one arm in front of him, shielding him from the potential attacker. Naruto jumped in between the 2 and in a voice that shouldn't belong to a 5-year-old, he yelled. Enough. Cowed by the commanding tone, the 3 ninjas relaxed their stances. Kakani, sit down on the bed and join us for the rest of the conversation, please. Kakashi began to walk into the room, but Naruto shot him a look, the door, please. Kakashi scratched the back of his neck in embarrassment before he went and closed the door. The 3 shinobi marveled once again as Naruto weaved through hand signs before placing his hand on the floor. Once the privacy barrier was in effect, he continued. Sorry about that, Granny, where was I? Naruto asked sheepishly. As she sat back down, Tsunade returned to a stunned state. This child was unreal. The question snapped her out of it, and she said, You were telling us how you hid at your parents' house for a whole year. Naruto snapped his fingers. Oh, yeah. Well, that sucked, but it is over now. Well, while I was at the house, I read the diaries. I also talked to the Kyuubi a lot. He has had a lot of experience with the Senju and Uzumaki in the past, even before he was sealed. He recognized my Senju blood. Kakani, I either need you to leave the room or promise to keep a secret, even from the Hokage. Tsunade and Shizune wore comprehensive looks on their faces while Kakashi looked offended. Naruto, he is my commander, I can't lie to him. Kakashi answered, but he wasn't ready for the sad look on Naruto's face. Okay, then please leave. I don't want to put you in a bad position. Naruto replied sullenly. Kakashi looked at the 2 kunoichi before they nodded at him, and he sighed resignedly. Fine, buddy. I just want to let you know that it looks really bad when you hide things from the Hokage. His tone grew firmer as he spoke. Kakashi, stop being a brat and get the out. The kid is right, and I will deal with Sensei when the time is right. Tsunade barked. Naruto looked apologetically at Kakashi before he took a couple $100 out of his pocket. Here, go have fun at the casinos, big brother. This will take a while. Tsunade looked greedily at the money, but Kakashi sighed and took the cash before walking out of the room. Naruto reapplied the privacy seal and looked back at Tsunade and Shizune. That goes for you 2 as well. I gave the Hokage multiple chances to come clean and he didn't. I know that I am a kid, but he continually lied to me. Not to mention he either knowingly or unknowingly let the council rob me of my inheritance. Ki flooded the room again before Naruto placed a calming hand on Tsunade's shoulder. She sighed before addressing him. You are family, and it is more important to me than that village will ever be. Now, please continue. Naruto smiled a truly genuine smile. Family above all. You are 1/4 Uzumaki and at least that much stuck with you. Tsunade smiled back at the kid. You know, brat, you are going to have to tell me how you know so much. A year alone in my parents' library with 20 shadow clones reading daily for the last 6 months. It took me a while to learn that jutsu and get my chakra and control good enough. Naruto answered sheepishly while rubbing the back of his neck. Tsunade and Shizune had their jaws on the floor and Naruto could tell they didn't believe him. He formed his favorite hand sign and called out, multi-shadow clone jutsu. 20 Narutos filled the room before they smiled ILY at the slug princess and her apprentice. They all dispelled in a massive puff of smoke that filled the room long enough for Tsunade and Shizune to recover from their stunned state. You are unbelievable, brat. Tsunade finally whispered and Shizune nodded along to Tsunade's statement. She was only 13 and her training was still rudimentary in comparison. She would even be able to form a single shadow clone at this point. I guess so, but I think I have to thank Dad for that. He adopted his sheepish pose while flashing a foxy grin. As I was saying, the Kyuubi, who told me I could tell you his name, which is Kurama, informed me of my Mokuton bloodline. Evidently it mellows him out quite a bit and he is happy. He is my friend and has been since my 4th birthday, so please don't ask if I trust him or tell me I shouldn't. Tsunade looked questionable at that. If he is so friendly, why did he attack the village and kill your parents? I already shared the memory with the Hokage. Do you really want to see that night from my mother's point of view? Naruto asked in a deadly serious tone. When both women said no, he summarized. Basically, a masked Uchiha killed everyone at the birthing site, forced my dad to choose between my mom or me. Spoiler, he chose me. Masked man used some teleportation jutsu to take my mom and he extracted the Kyuubi before putting him in a genjutsu that let the masked man control him. I think you know the rest of the story from there. Tsunade was rubbing her temples. You know, brat, I have a feeling that I am going to have a lot more headaches now that you are in my life. Yup. But I'm worth it cause I'm awesome. Naruto shot a cheeky smile at Tsunade. Anyway, once the Kyuubi basically confirmed that I was a senju, I looked through my parents' diaries. Mom mentioned that you had lost a child and my dad was entered into Konoha's orphanages a couple months later. Plus, it makes sense that my dad was a senju because he was totally awesome. Naruto shot a cheeky grin to lighten the mood. Tsunade was shaking her head and tears were streaming from her eyes. She had been in Minato's life and cared for him, but she never even dared to believe he was her son. The thought made her break down in a near hysterical fit of tears when small arms embraced her. It's okay, Granny. I am here now, Naruto said as he laid his head on top of Tsunade's since she was hunched over completely overwhelmed by her grief. He used his tiny arms to rub her back and comfort her. Shizune joined the little group hug and smiled at Naruto with a sisterly tenderness. Eventually Tsunade was able to stop her tears and she looked up to see a sorrowful smile on Naruto's face. Kurama, that's the Kyuubi's name, told me to remind you that you can confirm it with a simple blood test. I should be roughly 1/4 you, right? Naruto offered a distracting solution to break her out of her grief. Tsunade nodded, of course I can, I am the best medic in the world. Naruto nodded before asking a shocking question. Look, this may sound weird, but I need to know if Jiraiya was my dad's dad. If he is my grandpa, I want to let him know. Tsunade looked shocked and then an immense sorrow covered her beautiful face. Yeah, he was. Of course, he didn't know it when he was training your father, but it is a sick twist of fate because he always considered Minato his son. Well, Kyuubi told me he is a senju, I don't know how he knows, but that's what Kurama says. Tsunade looked stunned once again at the revelation. How would the fox know? Well, you know great uncle Tobirama's sensory ability. Well, I kinda have that. It is not as good yet, but I am already a pretty good sensor. The fox thinks Jiraiya was his bastard son. I looked into my family tree for the Uzumaki and Senju quite a bit when I was hiding out in the compound, and I agree. And here I thought I was the last Senju. Well, sounds like we will all be doing a blood test once we find a place to get settled down. Naruto nodded excitedly, which prompted Suna to ask Naruto another question. So, kiddo, why did you come looking for me now? Naruto looked sad at the question. Do you know what it is like to be a censor when everyone in the village hates you for something you didn't do? Tsunade and Shizune gasped, but Naruto continued. I was 4 when they attempted to beat me to death, even if I survived that it wouldn't have been the last time. Plus, I was going crazy living in my parents' house alone and I thought I was strong enough to make the trip to find you. Unfortunately, I needed to ask the Hokage for an escort, so I chose Kakashi. How did you get Sensei to let you leave the village? Naruto threw on a wide grin before answering. I guilt-tripped the bastard. He lied to me, even when I confronted him, he tried to lie to me again. I told him if he ever wanted me to be a shinobi of the leaf and to trust him again that he would let me go to you. I also told him we wouldn't be back until the last semester for my normal academy year, which gives us almost 8 years to live together and train. Tsunade just shook her head. You truly are unbelievable, kiddo. Well, where should we live? I am kinda strapped on cash at the moment. Naruto smiled cheekily before he hanged into Rias again and pointed a thumb at his chest. I am going to win the poker tournament, Granny, and then we can go find a nice house. Tsunade and Shizune laughed at the proclamation. What makes you think you can win the poker tournament? Naruto smiled like a Cheshire cat. I have the devil's luck, Granny, and if you don't believe me, then I will make you a bet. Tsunade nodded, so Naruto continued. I bet you I can beat you in 5 straight hands of poker, 5-card stud, with Shizune as our dealer. If you win, I give you this money that I somehow acquired last night, which is now just under $5,000. If I win, I get that necklace you are wearing. Tsunade looked at Shizune before looking back at Naruto. Can you believe this brat? Shizune laughed. Watch out, Tsunade-sama, you do have the worst luck. This earned Shizune a piercing look from the slug Sanin and a laugh from Naruto. Okay, brat, you have a deal. 5 hands of poker later, Tsunade reluctantly handed her necklace to Naruto and was shocked when the necklace started glowing. The necklace hung down to Naruto's belly button, but he looked super pleased to be wearing it. He looked up at Tsunade and handed over the money he had on him. I don't even know how I got this. I suppose I should tell you that I might be a sleepwalker, at least that is all I have been able to come up with. So, you can have this money as an early deposit and then you can watch me win the poker tournament. If you still want to play, then I guess the entry fee is only $500, which I can win back in like 10 minutes. Tsunade scoffed at the gall of this brat. She turned around and pointed to the kanji on her haori which read, gamble. Look, kiddo, gambling is what I do. There is no way I am missing out on this. Fine, Granny, but don't go crying when I beat you. Naruto taunted in a childish manner. Sungakor, 2 days before the poker tournament. Raza was sitting in his office in the Kazekage Tower when one of his shinobi ran into the office carrying a letter that had clearly rattled his cipher core, which was responsible for screening his official mail. The ninja handed off the letter and left the office, clearly not wanting to deal with the backlash. As Raza began to read the letter, his normally stoic face turned into a grimace. Once he got to the end, his look softened before he informed his dust, Suna's equivalent to Anbu, that he would be leaving the village and that he needed Lady Chio in his office ASAP. The wrinkled and withered old lady entered his office and Raza dismissed his guards before setting up a privacy seal. She began to read the letter. To Raza, the Kazekage of Sunagakor. Look, there is no easy way to say this, so I am just going to say it. I know you either plan to or have already attempted to have your son assassinated. Please do not go through with this. Your son is not defective, his seal is. I know you cannot trust the letter of a stranger, but I offer this compromise. I will adjust Gaara's seal for free and allow him to learn to control his biju in the proper manner. I will be at the annual poker tournament hosted at the Dragon's Den Casino coming soon in Tanzaku-gai. I will meet you in person and explain my reasoning to you and you alone in person. If you come, I will approach you. I know that you will need to bring guards, that is fine. I am asking you to take a leap of faith and in return you will be able to keep your son and gain a guardian of Suna. Which is a hell of a lot better than an unhinged weapon, which would be the result of your current seal. Ask your poor excuse for a seal's master, sorry Lady Chio, to review this portion of the seal I have attached. It is the consciousness separation barrier that your current storage seal is missing. It will not hinder Gaara's abilities or developments, but it will allow him a chance to retain his sanity and give him a real shot at a decent childhood. The seal I will be using is the Uzumaki 4 Trigrams Divination Seal. Best regards, your friendly neighborhood watch. P.S. You are the first person that knows an Uzumaki is still alive and involved in this organization. I ask for your discretion and in return you could make a powerful ally. Raza had collapsed back into his chair, still trying to process this information. Chio finished reading the letter and reviewing the piece of the seal before asking her first question. So, what are you going to do? Chio asked with a raise of one of her ancient white eyebrows. Does the portion of the seal check out? Raza asked with an overly serious tone. Chio nodded. Yes, this seal is intricate and powerful, and this would only be one of the 4 elements involved. I admit that sealing was never my strong suit, it was just that Suna never had a good base knowledge of seals. Raza sighed and his stern visage cracked. Would this let Gaara sleep? His instability was the only reason we even planned on attempting to eliminate him. I believe that is why this unknown person shared this part of the seal with us. This alone would be enough to let Gaara sleep. I would love to see the rest of the seal. So, if you are going to Kazekage, then so am I. Chio answered. Raza nodded his agreement. I admit I wouldn't know the first thing about a seal this complex. However, I cannot ignore somebody that knows this much about us. I must go and either find a solution to our problem or eliminate a potential threat to Suna. Very well, I will get my things and be at the gate in an hour. Chio responded before disappearing in a sand shunshin. Kazekage, poker tournament. Naruto and Suna were getting ready for the tournament that started at 1 p.m. Suna was once again stunned to find that Naruto's henge was an actual solid transformation. After Kakashi left to return to Konoha, Naruto stayed with Suna and Shizune for the next 2 days. The ladies had watched him at night and didn't witness any irregular behaviors, which was a relief to Naruto. The two were finishing off a breakfast prepared by Shizune, who was a much better cook than Suna, before they left for the casino. Rather than relying on a transformation for Naruto's clothes, Suna took Rias out to buy an orange yukata, which Naruto really liked. Suna couldn't help but notice the subtle differences in personality when Naruto was in this transformation, which threw up some flags for her. She dismissed her worries in favor of her excitement for the poker tournament. Finally, the two were ready with Suna in her typical outfit and Naruto in his Rias transformation and orange yukata. The two approached the casino and Rias gave the entry fee to Suna from the money he had continued to win over the past couple days. The kid literally started cleaning out casinos, but he always left before he drew too much suspicion, yet another sign that he was more mature than he let on. Anyway, the two entered the poker tournament and were sat at separate tables. Shizune decided to stay with Riyadh because it was always more fun watching somebody win and she had little faith in Suna's luck turning around. To make it to the finals, Rias would have to clear out 3 tables, with each table having 8 players. Rias managed to tactically dissect her first table in under an hour, which gave her ample time to continue with her plan. She went to the bathroom and pulled on a bit of Kurama's chakra to form an enhanced shadow clone. Once the clone was formed, she unsealed the full seal that she planned to use on Gaara. There was a small, remote-activated fire seal that would destroy the scroll should the worst happen, and Raza betrays her, but that was a worst-case scenario. The Rias clone left the bathroom with the complete seal and a couple $100. The clone knew its mission and Rias trusted it to get the job done. The real Rias left the bathroom and went to check in on Suna, who was surprisingly winning her first table. Suna shot a wry smirk at Rias, who returned the smirk with a knowing smile. After another 15 minutes, Suna managed to clear out the first table with a full house, queens over deuces. There was a 15-minute break in between rounds before Rias and Suna were once again sat at separate tables. Rias played this table super aggressively and managed to clear the table out in a record 38 minutes, which made her start to draw attention from the tournament's spectators. She used her free time to scan the crowd and noticed that there were several Suna shinobi scattered around the casino, but she couldn't see Raza or her clone. At least her clone hadn't popped yet, which she took as a good sign. With Rias' clone, 20 minutes prior, at the bar with Raza and Rias, Rias approached the Kazekage and was stopped by 2 guards, whom she allowed to search her for weapons. After a quick check, she was allowed to take the seat next to the Kazekage. She ordered a bottle of sake and 2 saucers, which she shared with Raza when the drink was delivered. The two sipped the first saucer before Rias opened the conversation. Thank you for meeting me, Lord Kazekage. I assure you that I bear no ill will toward you, Suna or Gaara. I am simply repaying an ancient favor that Suna did for the Uzumaki. Rias said casually as she sipped on another saucer. Raza was closely examining the stranger that was sitting next to him without a care in the world. He was skeptical, but decided to see where this went. He was confident that he could deal with this girl in front of him. How did you know about my plans for my son? Or the seal we used for that matter? Rias responded casually on again. Well, we all have our secrets, but the last outbreak of the Ichibi was only a couple months ago. When I heard about it, I knew it was because of the seal. Based on the history of the Ichibi, my guess is that Shikaku is not letting Gaara sleep and Gaara finally had a moment of weakness. Hard to blame a child for that. Raza knew that the outbreak wasn't exactly a well-kept secret. He was forced to admit that the girl had him there. What ancient favor are you talking about? Rias finished another saucer before she responded. Lord Kazekage, this isn't exactly a secure location. I paid for a private room, and you can invite Lady Chio to join us, if you wish. Why would you put yourself in a position to be captured? Raza asked. Why would you betray somebody that is attempting to help you? The question you should be asking yourself is what do you have to lose by trusting me? After a brief pause, she continued. Now think, what do you have to lose by doing nothing, or worse, betraying an Uzumaki? We are a pretty vindictive bunch. She finished smugly. Raza was once again forced to concede the point and decided to remain silent. He signaled Chio over with a wave of the hand and the redhead stood from her seat at the bar. Without another word, she walked toward the private room. Chio and Raza exchanged looks before following the young Uzumaki. They walked silently to the private room and watched as Rias set up a privacy barrier while 2 Suna shinobi remained on guard outside the door. Okay, you asked what favor your village did for the Uzumaki, and Chio will probably remember it. Before the Second Great Shinobi War, Suna loaned the Uzumaki clan $2 million and sent 2 squads of shinobi to aid in the repairs after Kiri ambushed an Azu fleet and attacked the island. I read about it in the clan registry, and when I heard about your predicament, I decided to help. Rias explained in her usual, casual tone. I do indeed remember that. Tell me, child, are the Uzumaki still alive? Chio asked. Sadly, there are a scant few that are scattered around the elemental nations. I am one of a handful, but I am part of an organization that is working to better the world. I understand that trust doesn't come easy, but if I do this for you, I may gain a powerful ally. Raza nodded at that. If what you offer actually works, you will indeed have an ally in Suna. I am assuming you brought another bit of proof to reward us for taking this leap of faith. Rias smiled and nodded before she unsealed the scroll for the Uzumaki style 4 trigrams divination seal, and handed it to Raza. I will caution you once again, if you attempt to betray me and take this seal, there is a self-destruct mechanism. If you tamper with that mechanism, you will not like the results. Chio let out a dry laugh at that. I like you, girl. You got spunk, much like your clan did. Thank you, Granny Chio. I appreciate that, Rias replied with a brilliant smile. Raza accepted the scroll for the seal, inspected it briefly before handing it to Chio. The old lady took a good, long look at the seal and let out a raspy whistle. That is some good work. Can you do this on your own? Rias shook her head in the negative. No, Lady Chio. I do not have enough chakra. I would require you and the Kazekage to add the protective seal around the seal you have. Shukaku will not appreciate the seal being strengthened and I will require you to suppress him. Raza simply nodded while contemplating this. Very well, anything else that will be required. Tsunade Senju is playing at this tournament. I would feel better if she were there with me, seeing as she is a distant cousin. Her healing expertise would be a welcome addition and I will be able to convince her to go to Suna. I would suggest a tempting payment and a couple bottles of Suna's top shelf to entice her. Rias responded knowing that she would need Tsunade there, otherwise it would create problems if he disappeared from Tsunade's side. Chio growled. That dastardly woman. Do you know how many problems she caused me throughout the Second War? It was infuriating and she was the main reason Konoha won. Rias chuckled. Aren't you glad she is an ally now then? Chio growled again, but Raza stood up. That will be acceptable. I will invite the two of you to Suna in 2 weeks. Do you require anything else? Rias held out her hand. I would like the scroll back. Uzumakis are very protective of their seals. Chio laughed heartily at that. Indeed they are. I tell you, young lady, it is refreshing to see a young lady with such a strong backbone. I do hope you will consider Suna an ally in the future. The Uzumaki would be a welcome addition to Suna. Rias laughed as she resealed the scroll. Thank you for the offer, Granny Chio. Unfortunately, the desert is a little too hot and dry for my taste. I wouldn't mind visiting from time to time though. Very well, young lady. No matter what this stingy cage says, you will always be welcome in Suna. Chio replied cheerily. Raza scoffed, don't go speaking for me, you old bat. Back in the tournament, Sunad was standing over Ria's shoulder constantly trying to get a peek at her cards and offer her advice. She was down to the final 4 and Rias was starting to get truly agitated, if the growing tick mark over her left temple was any indication. Finally, Rias snapped and ordered Shizune to drag her away or she wouldn't share the prize money. The table and onlookers laughed at this, but it was at that time that Raza showed up in the crowd. Rias winked at him, which threw the young cage off his game. Rias got a new hand and looked to see that she had a 10, Jack, King and Ace of Spades in her blind draw. She put a quarter of her stack in and surprisingly all 3 remaining players called her. She saw the guy with tousled brown hair failing to suppress a smirk and the fat guy with black hair kept tapping his cards, which was his tell that he had something good. The third player was better at suppressing his tells, but she smiled and traded in 1 card. The others traded in the cards they wanted to swap, and without looking at her last card, Rias pushed her chips all in. As the chip leader, this forced the hands of those remaining at the table. The brown hair guy instantly called with a gleeful look on his face. The fat guy thought about it for a bit before nodding to himself and calling. The quiet third guy with sandy blonde hair finally had a tell, a slight wrinkle of his left eyebrow that Rias noticed. After a minute, he pushed his chips all in as well. With the table all in, the dealer called for the players to flip their cards. The fat guy had a full house, 7s over 9s. The brown-haired fella had a mixed straight, 9 through king. The quiet guy flipped over his cards and had 4 of a kind in juices. Rias smiled as she revealed the 4 cards she was originally dealt. The audience gasped as they saw the potential for the royal flush and Rias let them hang in suspense. Sunad was about to jump onto the table and flip the card for her when Rias finally flipped it over to show the queen of spades. The 3 men at the table slammed their heads on the table while Sunad pulled Rias into a backbreaking hug. The casino owner showed up with some guards that were carrying a chest full of money, a total of $500,000. Rias gratefully accepted the prize money and instantly sealed it into a scroll to make sure that it was safe after she tossed $1,000 to the dealer. The crowd remained huddled around the winner of the tournament for a while and Rias was comped a VIP suite at the hotel for a week, an offer that Sunad accepted on Rias' behalf with zero hesitation. Once everything calmed down, Raza approached Sunad. As Rias saw him approaching, she got Sunad's attention and whispered in her ear. Grandma, I need you to trust me and go along with this. I promise I will explain after. Please trust me. Sunad nodded before she looked up and greeted the Kazekage. Raza, long time no see. How is Suna doing? Raza nodded by way of greeting before he opened up. Sunad, it is wonderful to see you again. You are as beautiful as the last time I saw you. Hey, good genes, Sunad replied. So, how can I help you? I have come to offer you a job and extend an invite to your cousin there. She has offered a solution to a problem we are having, and we would like your assistance as well. Very well, when will you need us in Suna? In 2 weeks' time, if that is acceptable. Raza answered. Very well, I can fit you into my schedule. What is the job you have for me? Sunad answered, truly perplexed at how a child could know the Kazekage. You will provide medical assistance as Rias performs the agreed upon task. Okay then, I should be able to do that. We will arrive in Suna in 2 weeks. For now, I need to spend my cousin's money. Sunad answered with a jubilant smile. Raza nodded at that. Rias, did I speak with an original or clone? Rias shrugged and smiled coyly at the Kazekage. Who knows? Lord Kazekage, who knows? HMPH, you are truly an interesting young woman. I look forward to seeing you in Suna. I will remain at a hotel in the city before leaving tomorrow, should you need to contact me. After the Kazekage left, Suna shot a menacing look at Rias, or should she say Naruto. Rias sighed, look, Grandma, there are a lot of things about me that are going to take some time to get used to. Blame your son, not me. For now, let's party. Suna held up her hand, wait, brat. Do you really think I am going to let a 5-year-old party and drink? Rias countered Suna with a deadpan look. I didn't say drink, I said party. And you let said child enter a poker tournament. Damn it, brat. I am the worst grandma ever already, Suna sighed out dejectedly. Rias slapped Suna on the shoulder. No, you're not, you're the best. This is the most fun I have had in my life. Suna had no answer to the beaming smile on Rias' face. Kit, you're an absolute genius when it comes to this. I cannot believe you haven't been forced to reveal your secrets yet. Kurama's voice transferred through the mind link. Ah shucks, Q, you flatterer. Rias thought back, with a cheeky grin attached. Kurama scoffed, don't push it, brat. Enjoy your night, we will need to talk soon, but I am glad the plan to help my little brother is going to work out. 2 weeks later, Suna's gates. Tsunade, Shizune and Naruto were finishing up the trek through the desert. The 2 weeks flew by for Tsunade, who spent a week in Kazekage and lost $10,000 that Rias shared with her. It baffled Naruto how bad Tsunade was at gambling, but it helped that Rias would accompany her or follow right behind her and make the money back. The two became a dynamic gambling duo and the casino owners didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They couldn't deny Ria's entry when she was with Tsunade, but in the end, they came out mostly even against the duo. Naruto, I don't know how this is possible, but I hope you understand the severity of what you agreed to. Biju seals are master-level seals, and they are beyond my comprehension. Tsunade said as she wiped some sweat out of her sizable cleavage. Damn, these be are more trouble than they are worth. I will be fine with the seal, Mama. Why do you always say that about your bee? Naruto asked. It should be mentioned that Tsunade absolutely hated being called grandma or granny, so she settled on Mama with Naruto. If you say so, kiddo. Well, to be honest, bee like these come with chronic back pain. It isn't a problem unique to me either. Tsunade replied. So, if I made a seal that could go on brass to alleviate back pain caused by Big B, I could make a lot of money. Naruto asked innocently. Tsunade halted mid-step and turned to Naruto with a deadly serious look on her face. Is that possible? I don't see why not. I will work on it as a side project. Do you think I could make money off it? Naruto replied with a high degree of interest. Absolutely. You would be filthy rich, brat. They wouldn't be able to keep them in stock. Tsunade answered enthusiastically. You know what, Ruto, I would like one of those too, if you could make one for your big sister. Shizune put on the puppy dog pout. Naruto laughed wholeheartedly, which filled the two with warmth. Of course I can, sis. Anything I can do to make you happy will make me happy. Shizune ruffled Naruto's hair and the trio came to the top of a dune and saw Suna in the distance. Alright, time for me to transform. It feels like Rias is a real person at this point, it is kind of weird. Tsunade cast an analytical eye on Naruto. She had noticed the same thing and she had noticed a real development of Rias' personality. You should be careful with that, Naruto. You slept-walked 3 times over these 2 weeks. Once you smelled like casinos and another time you smelled like Jiraiya, cheap sake and hookah perfume. Rias scratched the back of her neck sheepishly as she accepted the clothing from Shizune. Yeah, it is kinda getting out of hand. Shizune laughed. Yeah, I wish I could sleepwalk and come back with $4,000. We will need to keep an eye on it though. I reiterate what Shizune said. We don't have enough evidence, but I am concerned that you are starting to develop multiple personality disorder and it may be due to your heavy use of shadow clones. Did you go through something worse than you have told us about, Ruto? Tsunade said this softly and in a very motherly tone. Yeah, I still don't want to talk about it though, Rias answered. Tsunade scowled. When I get back to that village, I am going to destroy those damn civilians. Mama, calm down. They aren't worth it, and I would rather have you in my life. Plus, we need to stop back in Konoha so you can grab me great-grandpa's scroll. Rias attempted to soothe Tsunade's anger. No, little brother. For once, I agree with Mama. It is unforgivable to do something like that to a child. Shizune said in an unnatural growl. Sis, I don't even know who did it. And if you are going to kill everyone that glared or cursed at me, then you will kill the whole village. If you want to be mad at anyone, be mad at Danzo and the civilian council. Tsunade growled. That will have to do for now. Alright, Rias, game face on. Halt, please show us your papers. A guard wearing a sand turban typical of Suna shinobi shouted. I am the slug Sanin Tsunade Senju, and this is Rias Maki and Shizune Kaido. We are here on a request from the Kazekage, and he is expecting us. Tsunade answered with an irritated edge to her voice. My apologies, Lady Tsunade. We were told to expect you. Please follow me to the Kazekage's tower. The guard answered apologetically. The walk through Suna brought up many memories for Naruto as he remembered the first time he visited Suna to save Gaara from the Akatsuki. Hopefully it would be different this time around. For a city that was covered in complete, monotone, sandy brown, the city was much livelier than Naruto remembered. It must be because the Suna he grew to know and love was a village struggling to stay alive and stay in the fight against overwhelming odds. The cloudiness of Rias' emerald eyes was broken by a concerned hand on the shoulder from Tsunade, who added this to the list of unusual things about Naruto. Kami-sama, if you are listening, I would ask to tell these two. It is so hard for me to continually lie to family. I am already broken enough, and this is so much harder than I thought it was going to be. Naruto thought a prayer to Kami in his mind. Kurama heard the prayer and flooded positive feelings through the seal to ease his partner's burden. With the new occupants inside the seal, Kurama knew that his partner needed this. He also didn't know how to explain this to Naruto without breaking what remained of the boy's iron will. Kurama decided to echo his soul friend's prayer, and for the first time in his life as a Biju, he offered up a prayer to Kami. In the heavenly realm, Minato, Kushina and Kami were watching Naruto, and the two parents had frowns fixed on their faces. Kushina turned to Kami and fixed a glare on her. Kami-sama, this is too cruel. You know how loyal an Uzumaki is to family, and you know how much this is hurting him. As your humble servant, I implore you to grant him this single mercy. Kushina dropped her glare and bowed her head to the goddess. Minato took it a step further by completely prostrating himself before speaking. Kami-sama, you have shown my family mercy and we appreciate your favor. I too ask for this one favor because I fear for the sanity of my son, and you should too. Kami ed an eyebrow at this. Explain, Minato. You have bestowed great power on my son and tasked him with showing the world a better way. If he snaps, then that great power would lead the world astray rather than save it. I do not believe you want your creation to experience that much suffering. Minato answered with his head still on the floor. Oh, for my sake, will you sit down, Minato? You were always too quick to prostrate yourself. Very well, I will speak to him shortly because the damage to his soul was much worse than I first thought. Or maybe returning him to such an early time damaged it worse than I thought. Kushina deadpanned at the goddess. You literally dropped him into a mob beating. After which he spent a year alone trying to compensate for a 4-year-old's body, which is harboring the soul of a grown man. I do not doubt your will, Kami-sama, but that was a move. Kami chuckled sheepishly. Yeah, I was never proficient at tampering with time. I told him it would be during an important moment of his childhood, but I thought that it would have been at the academy or something. Minato joined Kushina's deadpan. So, will you grant him this mercy? Even just those two would be a massive relief to his psyche. Yes, you too. I will help address these issues, however, the multiple personalities will stay. I find it incredibly interesting. This earned groans from the parental duo and a melodious laugh from Kami. Back in Suna, the meeting with the Kazekage was over and Tsunade's group was escorted by Raza to the Kazekage mansion. The group walked in to see 3 kids sitting attentively in the living room while a man watched over them. Yoshimaru, these 3 will be our guests for a couple weeks. Will you show them their rooms and make sure they have everything they need? Raza announced as he entered the living room. It will be done, Lord Kazekage. Welcome to our humble home, Lady Tsunade. I hope you enjoyed your trip through Suna. Yoshimaru offered the group as they walked upstairs to the rooms. The city is as lively as I have ever seen it. A little hot for my taste, but I appreciate the simple beauty of the city. Suna replied. Yoshimaru looked at Rias and Shizune. And how did you two ladies find the city? Rias looked happily at the man. It is always good to see new places and meet new people. I am Rias Maki, pleasure to meet you. I thought the city was great. I would love to explore it a little more. Shizune added. I am Yoshimaru Subaku, brother-in-law of the Kazekage. It is a pleasure to meet you both. The man replied with a smile. We have prepared these 3 rooms for you. Feel free to make them your own for the duration of your stay. Thanks, Yoshi. Rias replied cheekily, which earned a hearty chuckle from the man. The girls got set up in their rooms before they joined the Kazekage's daughter and 2 sons in the living room. Rias had a reminiscent smile on her face as she looked at the children, and Sunad once again thought it was extremely out of place considering that Rias was supposed to be a young child that never met these kids. She continued to observe Rias throughout the small period of time that they spent with the lively children. At least 2 of them were lively and the redhead was quiet and stuck to himself. Rias took solace in the fact that the damage done to Gaara was minimal compared to the state she met him in her previous life. She made multiple attempts to include the boy in the conversation, but she only got one-word answers in response. He wasn't necessarily rude, but he was definitely not used to talking to people. She may have had more success if she were in her Naruto form. Instead, she found that she bonded fastest with the animated, young Temari, who was more than eager to pick the brains of Shizune and Rias as an up-and-coming kunoichi. Temari gave Rias a huge hug when Rias offered her a personal scroll on chakra control exercises and wind manipulation. She simply ruffled the young girl's hair that was held up in 4 ponytails. After a couple hours, Rias was escorted to the sealing chamber where she met Chio. Good afternoon, Granny Chio, it is good to see you again. If I give you a portion of the seal to prepare, would you be able to assist? Rias asked the old woman. Chio shook her head with a sad look on her face. My apologies, Rias-chan. I am not comfortable enough with seals to do that. I will help you review your work though. Rias shrugged and ignored the shocked looks that the Suna shinobi were giving her for calling Chio Granny. No worries, I will just make my own help. Alright, you lot, leave this room and do not step foot in it again. Rias tossed a copy of the seal to Chio. You can stay behind me and check my work, just don't step on the ink. Do you have a ritual altar prepared or do I need to summon one? Once again, Chio's old and wrinkled face looked apologetic. I do apologize, Suna doesn't have much experience with the sealing of Biju. Rias shrugged, not a problem. I kinda figured that would be the case. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. 10 copies of Rias filled the room and picked up ink and brushes to begin working. Rias herself weaved through the opening hand seals of the sealing jutsu before she paused on the 10th hand sign and placed her hands on the ground in the center of the room. A medium-sized altar rose from the floor and Rias flipped through another 20 hand signs before placing her hands on the altar. Kanji spread across the altar and down into the floor. The clones began writing the inner part of the seal and began spreading out from the altar. After an hour of 10 clones working on it, the seal was completed, and Rias was double-checking it with Chio. If you don't mind explaining this part to this old lady, could you tell me the function of this portion of the seal? Chio asked while eyeing the seal with interest. That portion is the chakra transfer seal. The 4-trigram seal allows a one-way seal for chakra flow. It is activated by the bearer's will or during times of extreme stress. Rias answered. And this part here? Chio said, pointing toward the inner portion of the circle. That part is the security. It forms the containment seal, affects the mindscape and ensures that the Biju cannot escape if Gaara is ever incapacitated or in a state of chakra exhaustion. This portion of the seal will constantly draw on Gaara's chakra to power itself and store a reserve power to cover for said times of vulnerability. The downside is that this will constantly require about 10% of Gaara's chakra. The upside of that is that it will consistently increase Gaara's chakra reserves. Rias explained. The Uzumaki were truly masters of the sealing arts. I am honored to witness such a brilliant display and I am shamed by the seal that I placed on that poor boy. Chio said in a sad tone. Hey, we were able to catch it early enough before too much damage was done to Suna and Gaara. Now, I suggest we get our rest for tomorrow because it is going to be a long day. Rias replied in a chipper tone to life Chio's spirits. She got a simple nod in return for her efforts. That night, Naruto was sleeping peacefully in the Kazekage's mansion when his consciousness was awoken to a pure white plane. He saw Kami standing there in her beautiful glory and he bowed out of respect. He looked up when he heard Kami's melodious chuckle. No need for such formalities when it is just the two of us, Naruto-kun. My apologies, Kami-sama. I believe you deserve such respect. How may I be of service to you? He asked formally. Please, relax. You are my chosen child. First, I wish to apologize for bringing you back so early in your life and at such an inopportune time. That was not what I planned to do. Second, I heard your prayer and I have come to address your request. Thank you for your consideration. It means a lot. Naruto replied with an earnest smile on his face. Kami waved off the gourd. Consider it an apology for my earlier mistake. When you wake, you will have 3 memory seals. I have selected memories that you may share with 3 people of your choosing. Your father recommended Suna, Shizune and your future wife, whoever the lucky girl may be. I will caution you that the memories are not pleasant as they show highlights and lowlights of your previous life. Naruto bowed at this, and his voice cracked as tears spilled freely from his eyes. Thank you so much. I don't know if you know how much it was torturing me to lie to my closest family. A sad look fixed itself upon the beautiful visage of Kami. It was never my intention to torture you, Naruto-kun. I am not against testing you, but I never wanted to force you to suffer like this. Now, enjoy your sleep. You are doing a good job thus far. My whole realm is tuning in nightly to watch the show. Naruto blanched at that, but before he could respond the white faded to black and he was back in the realm of dreams. Naruto awoke the following morning with the clear memory and found 3 seal tags on his bedside table. He stretched out his little legs and pocketed the tags. He wanted to tell his family, but he would need to get the sealing over with first. 4 hours later, Rias, Suna, Raza, Chio and Gaara were in the ritual chamber that Rias had prepared. Rias gave instructions to each person and confirmed that they understood their roles. Suna, you are on monitoring and damage control. Do your best to keep Gaara unconscious throughout the procedure. The process will not be fun for Gaara. Chio, you will be assisting Lord Kazekage to suppress the Ichibi's chakra. He will try to make a break for it as I break the former seal to activate the new one. Gaara, do your best buddy. After this, you will get a good night's sleep. I will be focusing on the seal. Now Gaara, I will need you to strip down to your boxes so that I can apply the seals. Everyone confirmed their roles and Rias summoned a clone to help apply the seal to Gaara's back as she worked on the front. When she finished and double-checked her work, she had Gaara lay supine on the sealing altar and Suna took her place. Rias took Gaara's left side while Raza and Chio were on his left. With a look at Suna, Rias began a countdown. After Suna put Gaara into a medically induced sleep, sand immediately began trickling around the chamber. Raza and Chio's hands glowed blue as they began the fight against the Ichibi's chakra. Rias took a deep breath and broke the very shoddy seal that was currently on Gaara. Shukaku's influence immediately strengthened and Raza and Chio needed to fight harder to suppress the Biju's chakra. Rias immediately began the 112 hand seals to activate the new seal. It took almost 2 minutes for her to complete the sequence and there was a scary amount of sand in the chamber. The voice of Shukaku could be heard screeching as he fought against his containment. No, no, not again. I will not stay locked in a seal. Damn you. I will break out of here and kill everyone you love. Curse you all. Shukaku's voice immediately began fading after Rias whispered and placed her hands over Gaara's heart. Uzumaki sealing style, 4 trigrams divination seal, activate, Rias whispered as she placed her hands over Gaara's heart and immediately felt the chakra drain required for the seal to activate. Kurama was fully awake and ready to support, and he provided as much chakra as he could while avoiding detection. Luckily, the insane aura of Shukaku's chakra provided ample cover for him to be generous with the chakra he provided. Sweat appeared on all brows of the sealing party. The aura was intense, and the chakra required to fight the Ichibi's influence was intense. The seals began collapsing from the edges of the sealing chamber and they started glowing a dark blue as they shrank in around Gaara. Once the seal array reached the altar, the kanji migrated from the altar onto Gaara's skin. It began swirling on Gaara and collapsed into the final seal over Gaara's heart. The seal formed into a whirlpool with 4 triangles at 10, 2, 4 and 8 around the whirlpool. With a final burst of chakra, the Ichibi's influence could no longer be felt. And that is how it's done. Rias panted as she collapsed to the floor of the sealing chamber. Kurama stayed alert and provided the chakra necessary to maintain the transformation. Raza was wiping the sweat from his brow and was also panting. That young girl is something special. Suna nodded with a proud look on her face. She sure is. Naruto woke up 3 hours later and saw Tsunade was in bed with him while Shizune was seated in a chair reading a medical book. Shizune noticed him wake up and smiled as the boy blushed at being snugged in between Tsunade's massive bust. The awkward fidgeting woke Tsunade up and Naruto got a serious look on his face, which alerted the 2 ladies. Okay, I wanted to wait until after the sealing was done, but I wanted to ask you 2 a question. Both of them looked at him in confusion, but they were serious and alert in response to his tone. Naruto took a steadying breath before continuing. Do you want to know the whole truth? I warn you now that you will not like what you see. Tsunade looked at Shizune, who had a scared expression on her face. How bad is it? Like my whole previous life and all the shit that led to the end of the world, seriously bad. Naruto answered in a completely serious tone. Tsunade and Shizune were shocked. Tsunade may have been ready, but it was a lot to ask of a teenage girl. Ruto, are you serious? Yes, and it will be stressful, so if you want to do it another day I completely understand. Kami finally answered my prayers last night and gave me permission to share my memories with both of you. Naruto answered. KK Kami? Shizune asked. Once again, Naruto nodded seriously. Yes, Kami. It got that Ed up that Kami got involved. Tsunade blanched and Shizune fainted in her chair. After 10 minutes, Shizune recovered and one look at Tsunade told her that this was real. Both girls decided that they wanted to get it over with and Naruto had them lie down on the bed. He unsealed 2 of the sealing tags and placed them on their foreheads. Remember, whatever you see are my old memories. They are not the current world and will not show you the future. I have already made changes that are sure to impact the timeline. I am doing this so you can understand me better. Seeing their smiles, Naruto closed his eyes and activated the tags. For a half hour Shizune and Tsunade lived a nightmare that lasted for years. They saw Naruto's previous childhood and what he escaped from this time around. They saw Sarutobi's death at the hands of Orochimaru. They watched their initial battle against the Snake Team and Tsunade becoming the 5th Hokage. They watched Naruto struggle in highlight form against the Akatsuki and then again in the 4th Great Shinobi War. They saw him defeat Kaguya only to be betrayed by Sasuke. They saw bits and pieces of the desperate fight for survival and the unleashing of the Juubi. Then they passed out as their minds struggled to process it all. Naruto was sitting by their bedside when Tsunade woke up. She immediately lunged and latched onto Naruto. Everything made sense and she couldn't believe how much suffering her grandson had endured. Every motherly instinct was fully activated, and she couldn't stop the tears from falling onto Naruto as she smothered his tiny form into her chest. She didn't have time to process the implications of what she saw yet, but that would sink in due time. Tsunade resolved then and there to protect him better this time around. 20 minutes later, Naruto went through a repeat of the events as Shizune woke up and smothered him. Once she calmed down, which understandably took a lot longer than Tsunade since she was a young teen, Tsunade held Naruto in her lap as they talked it out. There were a lot of I'm sorries and other comforting plauds that acted like drops of a healing potion in those video games Naruto remembered. Just knowing that they knew everything, or mostly everything, and that he wouldn't have to lie to them again was enough for him to surrender to the sweet embrace of sleep. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.